Returning home after Christmas night, Jack is horrified to find his wife and child gone. All that's left on the floor is a torn teddy bear and fresh bloodstains on the stone hearth. Then comes a chilling ransom call. The mastermind is his schizophrenic former mother-in-law holding his wife hostage in a derelict warehouse. In the freezing winter night, Jack must face a cold-blooded killer alone to save his family. The breathtaking rescue starts right now. Don't turn away. Like and subscribe now to follow this intense journey. The light on December 26th is like no other day of the year. It's not bright. It's a ghostly silver gray creeping through the curtains, like thin fingers searching for the echoes of last night's party. Outside, the world feels like it's stopped turning. The biting northern winter cold chokes out every sound. The streets are deserted. The snow has turned to hard ice, and even the chickens out in the yard, usually the most reliable alarm clocks, have chosen a mysterious silence today. Inside, the scent of fresh pine mixed with burnt-out candles creates a thick, heavy atmosphere. The living room lights are off, but the tinsel on the Christmas tree still glimmers eerily in the dim light. Torn wrapping paper and empty boxes are scattered across the floor like the ruins of a battle of happiness. On the king-sized bed, Jack is sprawled out, taking up the whole space like a general returning from a fierce war. His steady breathing is the only sound breaking the silence. Last night, he played Santa hauling gifts, laughing and giving it his all, until he finally collapsed from exhaustion. Next to him, 15-month-old Anna is a picture of dramatic contrast. Her tiny pigtails are a mess after a long night of wrestling with her dreams. One red wool sock has been kicked to the corner of the bed, revealing a tiny rosy foot curled up against the chill. Her chubby hands are clutching a Santa teddy bear as if it's the only treasure in the world. Tuttien lies there, eyes half closed, but her mind already racing. She didn't wake up because of a noise, but because of her mom radar. In the shadows, she can feel Anna's heartbeat and the warmth radiating from Jack. A faint crack echoes from the living room. Tuttien holds her breath. Is it just the wood contracting in the cold, or is someone moving? Her heart skips a beat. The silence no longer feels peaceful. It feels like a tense countdown. Tuttien decides to get out of bed. This isn't just waking up. It's a covert operation. Baby Anna has a superpower. The second her mom moves, she'll wake up and her cries will shatter the morning peace. Inch by inch, Tuttien slowly slides her arm out from under Anna's head. Now, she has to navigate the minefield of toys. The floor is littered with musical toys, and Legos the most dangerous weapons known to a bare foot. She moved with the silence of a thief like a ghost, no sound, barely even breathing. As her bare feet touched the freezing hardwood floor, a shiver ran down her spine. She froze and glanced back at the bed. Jack was still out cold. Anna was still clutching her teddy bear. She crept toward the window and peeled back the curtain, just a crack. Outside, the world was buried in white, so still you could almost hear a leaf hit the ground. No rushing, no emails, none of the soul-crushing pressure of daily life. In that moment, it hit her. The real drama isn't in the big blow-ups. It's on that thin line between the chaos of life and the absolute peace of family. She smiled the smile of someone who had finally won a round against time. The morning after Christmas, it turned out, was the final gift Santa left behind silence. But that silence didn't last. It wasn't shattered by Anna's crying, but by a series of sharp, frantic thuds at the front door. Knock, knock, knock. Bang! Tuttien froze in the middle of the living room. Her heart squeezed tight. Jack had headed out early to grab some milk and a few supplies. He would never knock like that. She looked through the peephole. A hauntingly familiar figure appeared in a tattered coat, shivering in the cold Mrs. Non, her former mother-in-law. Standing next to her was a stranger, his hat pulled low to hide half his face, his eyes darting around like a predator's. Tuttien cracked the door open, but before she could say a word, Mrs. Non shoved her way in, dragging the man with her. The door slammed shut, cutting off the cold outside, but bringing in a vibe that was 10 times more chilling. "Mom, what are you doing here?" Tuttien's voice trembled. She glanced toward the bedroom, where Anna was still fast asleep. "Money! Give me the money!" Mrs. Non hissed through her teeth. Her face was gaunt, showing the desperation of someone consumed by debt and gambling. "You're living large in this big house, and you're just gonna let your former mother-in-law get hacked to pieces by thugs." Tuttien backed away, her hands shaking as she gripped the edge of the kitchen table. "I have nothing to do with you anymore. Jack will be back any minute. You need to leave. Now, Jack." Mrs. Non let out a twisted smirk. "Your new husband isn't home. I waited until he was long gone. Don't play games with me. Pay off my debt or else." The man beside her took a step forward. He didn't say a word, but the heavy smell of cigarettes and the raw aggression coming off his tattooed arms made the air feel thick. "I don't have cash here." Tuttien tried to keep it together. Her mind was racing, thinking only of the bedroom. If Anna woke up and started crying, things would go south fast. No cash. We'll find something else to make up for it. The man said, his eyes locking onto Tuttien's neck. There, tucked just under her turtleneck, was a gold necklace, a priceless keepsake she cherished. It wasn't just the gold. It represented trust and protection. Mrs. Non lunged, not to beg, but to pin Tuttien's arms down. The strength of a woman driven mad by debt was terrifying. "Mom, you're insane, get off me." Tuttien struggled, but Mrs. Non used her entire body weight to pin her against the cold wall. "What do you need this for? Give it to him. He'll let me off the hook." Mrs. Non screamed, her eyes bloodshot. The man didn't waste another second. He lunged forward, his rough hands grabbing her collar. Tuttien felt the chill of his fingers against her skin. A wave of pure disgust and terror washed over her. He yanked it hard. Snap. The delicate gold chain couldn't stand the force and snapped instantly, leaving a long red welt across Tuttien's pale neck. The burning sting was nothing compared to the humiliation. Her former mother-in-law, the woman who used to call her daughter, was now aiding a robber in her own home, while her baby slept just feet away. He looked at the gold in his hand and gave Mrs. Non a brief nod. But he wasn't done. His eyes began scanning the room, sizing up the expensive electronics in the living room. Right then, Anna's cry rang out from the bedroom. It was a heartbreaking wail, the sound of a child startled awake by the chaos. Mrs. Nan froze. The man turned his head toward the bedroom door. And there's a kid. He licked his lips, a sick look in his eyes. The fear in Tuttien evaporated, replaced by a surge of raw, frantic power. "Don't you touch my child!" With every ounce of strength she had, she kicked the man hard in the gut, then swung her hand, slapping Mrs. Nan so hard the woman tumbled to the floor. Tuttien scrambled to the bedroom door, standing guard like a cornered animal ready to die for its young. Just as the man was about to charge at her in a rage, the sound of a familiar engine echoed from the yard. The screech of brakes hissed on the ice, but that sound was just an illusion of hope. It was only the neighbor's car passing by, disappearing behind the snow-covered pines. Jack was actually stuck at a convenience store 3 miles away. A pile-up on the highway had brought traffic to a standstill. He tried calling, but Tuttien's phone was left upstairs, vibrating uselessly on the soft mattress. Back in the living room, the air turned heavy. The stranger recovered from the kick was more aggressive than ever. He let out a low, animalistic growl. "You bitch!" He lunged at her like a dark shadow. Tuttien tried to bolt for Anna's room, but Mrs. Nan, completely consumed by her demons, was faster. Stripped of any remaining conscience, seeing only the gold and the debts closing in on her, she blocked the way and shoved Tuttien's shoulders with everything she had. "Where do you think you're going? Give me the key to the safe." The shove, fueled by pure desperation and hate, was incredibly powerful. Tuttien lost her footing, her bare feet sliding on the freshly polished hardwood. Behind her was the marble hearth of the fireplace, the very spot where the family had huddled for warmth just last night. Thud. A sickening, dull crack echoed through the room. Tuttien's head hit the sharp edge of the stone. A flash of blinding pain shot through her brain like lightning, and then instantly everything went pitch black. Tuttien collapsed, her breath coming in ragged gasps. Blood began to seep out, staining the pristine white rug, a haunting, vivid crimson streak. Mrs. Nan froze for a second. Her hands shook at the sight of the blood, but the man didn't flinch. He stepped over nonchalantly, using the toe of his boot to flip Tuttien's pale face to the side to inspect the wound. "Is she dead?" he asked, his voice bone-chillingly cold. I don't know. I just wanted the money." Mrs. Nan stammered, but then her eyes locked onto Tuttien's diamond earrings. Greed quickly crushed her fear. Inside the bedroom, Anna's crying had shifted from sleepy whimpering to a heartbreaking scream. She could feel the unrest. She could feel her mother's warmth was gone. "Shut that kid up before the neighbors hear," the man snapped. Mrs. Nan trembled as she walked into the bedroom. She saw baby Anna, the granddaughter she had never acknowledged, sitting on the bed, her face flushed red from crying. She didn't pick her up. Instead, she snatched the Santa teddy bear from the baby's hands and threw it into the corner. "Quiet, you're a jinx just like your mother." Anna went stiff, her cries catching in her throat from pure terror. Her wide eyes stared at the strange woman with utter horror. Meanwhile, in the living room, the man started ransacking the place. He kicked aside the Christmas gifts they hadn't cleared yet, tearing through loving holiday cards. He found Jack's wallet and stripped it of every crisp bill inside. Tuttien lay there, sinking into a vast void. In her delirium, she saw herself running across a field of white snow. Up ahead, Anna was waving and calling for her. "Mommy!" Anna's desperate cry in the real world pulled Tuttien's consciousness back from the edge of darkness. Her eyelids flickered. The pain at the base of her skull was like 1,000 needles. But a mother's instinct is the most powerful painkiller on earth. She didn't open her eyes right away. She heard the heavy footsteps of the man heading toward the stairs. She heard Mrs. Nan rummaging through the glass cabinet in the living room, the clink of crystal hitting crystal. I have to wake up. I have to save Anna. The blood had begun to clot, matting her hair. Tuttien forced her fingers to move. She felt the ice-cold floor. Every tiny movement made her head feel like it was going to explode. She saw Mrs. Nan's shadow on the wall, hunched over stuffing silver pieces into a bag. Tuttien realized that if she didn't act, they would take everything, and they might hurt Anna to cover their tracks. Jack? Where is Jack? Why isn't he home yet? Mrs. Nan left the living room, heading for the kitchen to hunt for more valuables. The man had gone upstairs. This was her only shot. Using every ounce of willpower, Tuttien pushed her hands against the floor. Her vision blurred the room, spinning like a whirlwind. She bit her lip until it bled, just to keep from groaning. She crawled inch by inch toward the drawer under the side table, where Jack always kept a canister of pepper spray for emergencies. Her hand brushed against the cold metal. She gripped it tight. The man didn't back down. He headed downstairs, clutching Jack's laptop. He spotted Tuttien struggling to sit up. "Well, look at that. This cat's got 9 lives, huh?" He sneered, flicking open a switchblade. "I was gonna let you slide, but you just had to stay awake to watch me leave, didn't you?" Mrs. Nan rushed out from the kitchen, panicked. Don't kill her. The cops will come." "Shut up, old lady. You brought me here, so you're an accessory now." He shoved her aside and lunged at Tuttien, knife raised high. Tuttien didn't flinch. She looked the killer dead in the eye. The fear was gone, replaced by a fierce burning fire to protect her child. They had shoved her. Her head had slammed against the stone, and she had blacked out. Seeing her unconscious, they had taken her. But where? Later that evening, the rumble of Jack's pickup truck died out in the driveway. He climbed out his shoulders, aching after a long day, dealing with a sight emergency. The snow had stopped, but the cold still bit through his coat like needles. Jack took a deep breath, smiling at the thought of hugging Anna and kissing Tuttien's forehead. He unlocked the door and stepped inside. Strangely, the house was pitch black. "Tien, Anna, Daddy's home." Jack called out, but the only response was the low hum of the heating system. He flicked on the living room lights. Everything looked normal. The tree was still there, gifts still under the branches. He had no way of knowing that before fleeing with the stranger, Mrs. Nan had tried to scrub the crime scene. She had wiped the blood off the hearth, kicked the laptop under the chair, and dragged Tuttien and Anna away to parts unknown. They must be at the store or her mom's, Jack muttered to himself. He tossed his keys on the table, feeling a bit let down, but not overly worried. It wasn't in his nature to overthink things this early. He took off his coat, rolled up his sleeves, and headed to the kitchen. Jack decided to surprise his wife with a gourmet dinner. He pulled some beef from the fridge and started slicing it. The rhythmic thud, thud of the knife against the cutting board was the only sound in the quiet house. 6:00 p.m. The soup began to simmer, filling the air with a rich aroma. Jack glanced at his phone every few minutes. That's weird. No texts. He dialed Tuttien. The subscriber you are trying to reach is currently unavailable. 7:00 p.m. Jack set the table. 3 bowls, 3 sets of silverware, all lined up perfectly. He poured a glass of orange juice for Anna. He lit the candles, their flames flickering softly. Just traffic, he reassured himself, though a nagging, restless feeling was starting to settle in his gut. 8:00 p.m. The food on the table had gone cold. A thin film had formed over the soup. Jack couldn't sit still anymore. He paced back and forth across the living room. Then he noticed a small detail, Anna's Santa teddy bear. Normally, Anna never went anywhere without it. But there it was, lying abandoned under the sofa, one arm torn open, with the white stuffing spilling out. Jack picked up the bear. His heart started to race. Why was the baby's bear torn? And why was it shoved in such an odd spot? Jack started looking closer. He dropped to his knees, shining his phone's flashlight into the dark corners. Under the harsh white light, he saw something glinting near the bedroom door frame. He picked it up. It was a small red bead. A bead from the tattered old coat that belonged to Tuttien's former mother-in-law. Mrs. Nan always wore that coat. Jack knew, because Tuttien had mentioned it was the only thing the woman owned to wear when she went out to harass people for money. No way, Jack whispered. He bolted into their bedroom. The sheets were a mess, and Anna's pillow had been tossed onto the floor. On the vanity Tuttien's jewelry box was shut, but when Jack flipped it open, it was empty. All her most precious pieces were gone. Fury and fear began to flare up inside him like a wildfire. Jack ran back to the living room and knelt by the marble hearth. He noticed a faint smudge, as if someone had tried to scrub it clean in a hurry, but a trace of pale pink pigment still lingered on the white stone. With a shaking hand, he touched the spot and brought his finger to his nose. The smell of iron. Blood. Just as the realization hit him that something horrific had happened, his phone on the kitchen table began to buzz violently. An unknown number. Jack snatched it up, his voice raw and raspy. "Hello, who is this?" The other end was silent for a beat. Then a gravelly, malicious laugh broke through. It wasn't Mrs. Nan. It was the stranger. "You Tuttien's husband dinner looks great, but too bad your wife and kid won't be making it home to eat. Where are they? If you lay a finger on them, I swear to God I'll—" Jack roared, the veins in his neck bulging. "Cool it." The man cut him off. "Your ex-mother-in-law said you were loaded. If you want to see your 15-month-old make it to tomorrow morning, get the cash ready. And listen, come alone. If I see a single cop, that fireplace at your house won't be the only thing stained with your wife's blood." The line went dead with a long dial tone. Jack stood frozen in the middle of his living room, surrounded by festive Christmas lights. He was alone, facing a darkness that was closing in on his family. He looked down at the torn teddy bear in his hand. His eyes bloodshot. Jack didn't sleep a wink that night. He sat in the armchair facing the front door, a crowbar at his feet, and his phone gripped so tight that sweat blurred the screen. He waited for another call, a specific ransom demand, but the response was only a terrifying silence. As the clock ticked toward 6 a.m., the silver-gray light of dawn began to creep through the fog. Jack stood up, his face gaunt and covered in overnight stubble. He realized that sitting around waiting was suicide. They could have taken them far away or worse. That woman could be hiding in one of the local spots. Only a regular would know. He grabbed his coat, stuffed Anna's torn bear into his pocket as a lucky charm, and ran to his truck. The engine roared to life in the freezing air, shattering the morning silence. His first stop was the Central Market, the place Tuttien visited every morning for groceries. The morning after Christmas, the market was sparser than usual. Gray tarps covered the stalls, and the smell of raw fish mingled with the melting ice. Jack frantically searched every vegetable and meat stall. He pulled out his phone, shoving a photo of Tuttien and Anna in front of everyone. "Have you seen my wife? She's wearing a white sweater. She has a 15-month-old with her." Jack asked a woman selling fish, his voice trembling. She squinted at the photo, then shook her head. "I saw her yesterday morning, but who's out shopping this early today? My stall was closed for the holiday yesterday." Jack ran to the general store at the corner of the market where Tuttien usually bought diapers. The owner was sweeping up and looked at Jack with concern. "Jack, man, calm down. Maybe she just went to her parents' place." "No, she didn't go anywhere." "Did you see her with a gaunt old woman or some strange guy?" Jack pressed his eyes, bloodshot and frantic. A loader, standing nearby, paused and clicked his tongue. "Early this morning, around 4 a.m., they saw a beat-up truck parked in the back lot. A kid was crying pretty loud, but I figured it was just a family hitting the road early. There was a middle-aged woman in the back seat acting shifty like she was trying to hide something." Jack's heart skipped a beat. "What color was the truck? Did you get the plates?" "Forest green, totally trashed. The plates were covered in mud, but I remember it had a logo from that old machine shop on the south side of town." Jack tore off toward the south side. It was a desolate area filled with abandoned warehouses and bankrupt workshops. The fog was thicker here, clinging to the ground and forcing Jack to squint through the windshield. He slowed down when he spotted fresh tire tracks in the slushy mud leading down a trail overgrown with weeds. Jack's mind raced with everything he knew about Tuttien's former mother-in-law. He knew she was buried in debt, but he never imagined she'd be cruel enough to kidnap her own granddaughter for a payday. He killed the engine about 100 yards from a rusted corrugated warehouse. The smell of motor oil and mold hit him instantly. From inside, the dim glow of an oil lamp flickered through the cracks of a rusted iron door. Jack didn't call the cops. Not yet. He knew the guy had a knife, and if he panicked, Tuttien and Anna's lives would be forfeit. He scavenged a piece of iron pipe from the roadside and crept forward like a hunter closing in on his prey, pressing his ear against the freezing metal wall. Jack heard Tuttien's moaning. "Please, give my baby some water. She has a fever." Her voice was weak and broken, the sound of someone completely spent after a night of agony. "Shut up, no money, no water," Mrs. Hahn hissed. "This is all your fault. If you'd just given me the cash from the start, we wouldn't be here." "You're a monster," Tuttien whispered. Then came a sharp crack, the sound of a slap that nearly made Jack scream in rage. He grit his teeth so hard his jaw ached. Peering through a gap in the door, he saw Tuttien tied to a wooden chair, her head wrapped in a white bandage stained with dried blood. Anna was curled up at her mother's feet, no longer able to cry, only letting out tiny rhythmic gasps. The stranger was perched on a drum, flipping through the small bills he'd lifted from Jack's wallet. He pulled out his switchblade and started peeling an apple, the steel glinting under the lamp like a death sentence. Jack took a long, deep breath. He knew the time for talk was over. He looked toward the old circuit breaker outside the warehouse. If he cut the power, the darkness would be his only ally. Jack's hand gripped the lever. He mouthed the words, "Tien, Anna. Daddy's here."